Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to Evolve and Elevate with Erica. I'm your host, Erica Bishop, and I am delighted to be here with you all again tonight. As we are about to start our broadcast tonight, I just want to thank you all for all of your support. We thank you all for being a part of this community, and we also thank you for sharing this information out with your friends and your family. So please continue to allow them to know that we are here tonight. As I am also here with my special guest, Alicia Johnson from the 1212 community, and I'm going to give her a moment to introduce herself to you all.
Hello, everyone. I am Alicia Johnson, the creator of the 1212 community, and the 1212 community has been created to help everyone who chooses to learn how to recalibrate their lives 12 hours for God and 12 hours for man. We each have a purpose, we each have a passion, and we each have a calling. And with that being said, it is our responsibility to learn how to manifest and create everything that God has promised us. And so that is what the 1212 community is about, helping you to bring through to fruition the truth of who God has created you to be. So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, we thank you as always with being with us tonight. So, as always, when we talk about different things here on Evolve and Elevate with Erica, it's all things about empowerment, self discovery, and transformation. We don't leave any subject untouched because we want to have a very open dialogue, a very truthful dialogue, and one that will continue to have a powerful connection and conversation. So, again, I thank you so much for being here tonight. So, tonight's subject is going to be mind over matter. We're going to be digging into positive self talk and the inner dialogue. And oftentimes we think, oh, well, I know how to do affirmations. Oh, well, I'm good in that space. I know how to deal with speaking to myself and how to change my verbiage about myself and manifestation and some of these different things. But one thing that I've noticed is sometimes in the heat of a moment, we've got to deal with that inner critic that still tends to pop up in certain situations and circumstances that we thought we had complete control over. We thought that, you know what, I'm good, I'm strong, I don't have to have any help in this space. But we all have a situation every now and again when we come up against something that we weren't necessarily prepared for. And we find ourselves having this inner dialogue with our emotions, with our mindset, and even sometimes the things that Big Mama or Auntie told us in the heat of the moment. So, as always, I'm going to start with a question so we can get this started off. So, let's talk about the power of understanding and knowing your inner critic. And when your inner man, that unhealed part or that unsaved part, decides it wants to show up and be louder than what you really know you should be doing.
Hmm. So what's the question?
What do we
Because
do
I can go,
with
I can go in so many different directions.
whatever direction the Lord leads us? Go down that street. Because we're going to go on down all the streets tonight. So, what do we do when that other person decides to show up? That inner critic decides to rear its head.
Hmm. So for me personally, I had to learn this a long time ago, and this is like a power move from God. So the world has a way of teaching you in a way that keeps you stuck. So I don't really give a whole lot of credence to anything that the world says by way of constantly having positive thinking, and um, you can hum it away, you can meditate it away, you can, whatever the thing is. I put this thing on my wall. This little Indian lady, she was like, they've given yoga up to the Westerners now, because it's like, they're rushing to yoga, they're rushing to everything. So when Americans, when we get a hold of something, when the world gets a hold of something, that it's going to be diluted and all of that. And so for me, for the longest time, I would always try to silence the thought. Like when that inner critic would, pop up, and you would try to breathe, let me just calm down. And it never went away. Like it would just like, you can quiet it for a minute. But this was so powerful for me because I take everything to God in prayer, everything. So I was like, God, this monkey mind, um this voice, the constant criticism and all of that. And the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so that's what those thoughts are coming. Your thoughts are either being used by you, or if you are a formidable opponent, is being used by the enemy. And what God taught me, and this is something that I teach also, give that voice a platform, give it a stage, and you interrogate it. I've never been in the military, but I watch the movies and all of that. But like a prisoner of war, give it the stage, ask it, who sent you?
Mm-hmm.
What is your assignment? And how long will you be staying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let the thought that you're having, let it have its platform. Like, let it run through and do everything that it's going to do. And once you give it that moment and you ask it those questions,
Mm-hmm.
then it'll get out of the way. It is so, you got to try it for yourself in order to understand the power in it. But instead of trying to hold it back, instead of trying to push it down, give it the space it needs. Who sent you? What is your purpose, and how long will you be staying? And once it answers those questions, it's done. It's like, especially like fear. Who sent you? It's
Mm-hmm.
like the enemy sent me, or you sent me based on your past occurrences. How long will you be staying? I'll be here as long as you allow me to stay. What is your assignment? My assignment is to get you to stop doing the thing that you were getting ready to do, because I know. And so when you let it have its full voice, then you can have a dialogue with it, and then you can empower yourself to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
that's what I do with those thoughts.
that's so powerful. Who sent you? How long are you staying?
And what is
And
your purpose? What is your
what is your
assignment?
purpose? Those some good questions. That's some good questions for everybody. Even if it's not your inner critic. Anybody that comes to you, who sent you? How long are you gonna be here? And what is your purpose? You have to answer those questions. A good friend, Dr. Japonica Walker, she's gone home to be with the Lord. She talked about the three: your born again self,
Uh-huh.
your intellectual self, and that other person that wants to show up that you need to keep at the altar. And when those show up, because we should be operating spirit, mind, and body. When that flesh show up, or when the intellectual side wants to have that conversation with you, but your spirit has to be the one that we have to learn how to walk with, and that's the spirit is the one that's doing the interrogation. It's the spirit side that's doing the interrogation to get everything else in alignment with that inner dialogue. And oftentimes, that inner dialogue will cause you, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago, to miss your miracle.
Mm.
When you allow that emotion, that thought to try to come up against you and to stall you, to get you misdirected, from where it is that you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be hearing God say. And I read something the other day. It talked about how to be quiet enough to hear God's whisper
Mm,
so that that thing that's shouting at you won't be so loud.
my God. My God.
And
Mm.
oftentimes we allow that inner dialogue to run rampant. And y'all, I'm fanning because I'm having a whole personal summer moment. We're gonna have to have a show on menopause,
Who
y'all.
sent say who sent you? How long will you be staying? And
The
what is
devil,
yours?
okay? He was that's not sent by the Lord. Okay, the menopause is not sent by the Lord. Oh God, this is not anything I ever wanted for anybody who has to deal with this. My God, we having a show on menopause, y'all. Just let me know when y'all ready to
Honey,
talk about it.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Ooh, we'll have to probably have that on a, secure another different line because we're gonna have to really get into some things about this whole menopause situation. So we can
Mm,
get refocused.
mm,
So when we think about the inner critic, we also what I have had to find is in addition to who sent you, what origin did you come from? Meaning, are you a childhood situation that I still need
mm,
to deal with?
mm, mm,
Or is this rooted out of abandonment? Or am I still dealing with rejection? Or is this low self-esteem? What origin are you coming from so that I can deal with you accordingly so that you don't have to return?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
And that,
oftentimes, go right ahead.
now I was gonna say that is the key is dealing with it so thoroughly that it has no reason to return. You need to like when I say no reason to return, no reason to return to diminish you, or it can come back to serve you. Like everything has a right to exist. And so instead of it diminishing you or making you like you then become its master versus it mastering you. So I personally love when scenarios represent themselves so that I can see how much I've grown.
Mm-hmm.
Like when things recur and those like, oh, that didn't even phase me. Like, oh my goodness, so don't try to, how can I put it, eradicate it.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it in its proper place.
Exactly. I've come to learn not to rebuke some things too quickly.
Oh my God.
Because
Yes.
oftentimes we get to a place where we want to hurry up and rebuke something so we don't have to deal with it. And a lot of times we miss the lesson and we miss the growth. And sometimes we even miss the come up in the spirit. We dismiss our own place of promotion because we don't want to deal with a situation, and God is bringing something forward so that you can operate in what you have learned, because everything we hear, we are responsible for it once we hear it. So thank you for listening. You will be having a pop quiz. I'm gonna go ahead and put you on notice. Anytime you listen to something and you say, "Oh, that's good," and you agree with it, you're gonna be held responsible for that thing because you're gonna have a pop quiz. Because if it touched you in your soul and in your spirit, and you
Mm,
agree, we're gonna see how authentic you are to it. The spirit is gonna say, "You know what? We're gonna have to do a little pop quiz." So
mhm,
I have learned not to rebuke so quickly because I need to investigate. Is this something God is bringing to help me to grow, to gain some wisdom, to gain some understanding, and to probably take a promotion in the spirit? Or is it truly the enemy that I do need to rebuke it? And
mhm,
sometimes we have to exert the power that we have because we don't use our power enough.
mhm. And that's the thing that when I consistently teach, pay attention to everything that crosses your path. When you pay attention to everything that crosses your path, I mean spiritually, mentally, and physically, then you don't have to rebuke anything, because God has sent it for whatever reason, to edify you, to strengthen you, to grow, whatever it is. When you pay attention to what has crossed your path. And I used to be the type of person, because I was always inserting myself in stuff. I was looking to the left, looking to the right, looking behind me. I was in everything. And I would constantly find myself saying, surely this is not of God. Like, surely this is not of the Lord. This is not of God. This is not. So I was confused. Like, I didn't know, anytime you have to spend so much time discerning, if is this God, is this me, is this that means that you're looking in too many different directions. Because if you consistently keep your eyes focused on heaven, focused on the God-given assignment, focused on what it is that you are supposed to be doing, then everything that crosses your path has been okayed by the Father, by heaven, by the angel. Like, everything is in alignment. The angels are working. Everything is working with you. But when we get off track, that's when the conflict and the confusion comes.
So let me put this disclaimer out here really quick, because I feel as though I have to do this. Now, for those people who want to use this as a segue into, well, he came across my path, so I felt it was from the Lord. You still have to operate in
Oh,
a place of
discernment is
obedience
still,
and
yes,
discernment.
yes. So when I say pay attention to everything that crosses your path, that means that there is something for you to do with it. So for me, for example, there are things that cross my path that heaven allowed to cross my path so that I could handle it, so I could deal with it, so I could operate in spirit and truth, so that I could have the opportunity to correct it, so I could have the opportunity to make amends, to do the forgiveness work. So it's not just a get out of jail free card. Like, everything that crosses your path is like, oh, this is it's
Yeah,
good. Everything that God sends has a purpose for it, but you have a responsibility to discern why that thing has crossed your path, or why God has allowed that thing to cross your path.
absolutely. You
Yeah.
have a
You have a
responsibility.
responsibility. Yes.
So I want to make sure that's clear so that
Yeah,
people
because some people run with that. Well, that was a married man that crossed your path, and God allowed that person to cross your path so that you could understand more about the sanctity of relationship. Whatever it is, you have to be very understanding of the character of God.
yes, because too many people be blaming stuff on God, and God is like, I ain't had nothing to do with none of that. That has nothing to do with me at all whatsoever. Don't put that on me. And he will really embarrass you and show you it was not me. Okay. All
Because
right.
that's what, like, that's how, for example, everything that crosses your path, I never forget, like, my husband and I, we were going through our situation. And this was so powerful. Like, when you pay attention to everything that you have to deal with, all of the lessons that you need are right there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you need is right there. I learned so much about God in that God is not going to allow, God does not have to diminish anyone to increase you. God does not have to take anything from someone else to, it's amazing. And I never forget, during that time period when I was praying for my marriage, I never forget. It was like, everything was crossing my path to show me that God honors marriage, that God wanted me to do the work that was required. And it was like, there was one day, like, for a whole month, I just kept seeing couples, like, people in places, like, I working in like downtown where people are working. I'm seeing all of these couples. I was like, God, this is ridiculous. I'm running to get a coffee. Couple all hugged up and stuff. And I'm just like, really, God, really? And God said, this is available to you. And then I started praying. I was like, God, will you bless my marriage? Will you heal my marriage? God was like, I sure will, but not as long as you're destroying someone else's. See, God does everything decently and in order. And a lot of times, heaven will allow scenarios to cross your path to show you just how out of order you are.
Oh, say that one more time for the people in the back and the people that's eavesdropping around the corner.
So God will allow things to cross your path to just show you how out of order you really are. Yeah,
That
so
hurt.
paying attention to everything that crosses your path does not mean that, oh, everything that crosses your path is just going to be lovely and just, it's
Mm-mm.
like it's real work there. There's real work to be done. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the opportunity to do really deep spiritual work because they don't understand what it is. That's harder than the world's work. Spiritual work is hard. I mean, people think it's like just, I don't know what, it's just
Oh,
like, yeah, like you snap your fingers, you pray, you do this. Like God is a genie in a bottle, not understanding, think everything. Heaven is the most orderly entity that you will ever encounter.
if you really focus on your own spiritual work, you got enough drama in your life. You don't have to deal. You don't have to watch nobody's reality TV show.
Nope.
You don't have to gossip about nobody else's
Nope.
business. You
Nope.
don't have to worry about nobody. You got enough stuff going on in your own. If you really want to do some spiritual work and let God dig up in your stuff the way He really needs to, you don't have time for nothing else.
Yep.
Where
But
you
you got to
been,
go
girl? I
deep.
ain't seen you in 6 months working on me.
But you got to go deep, not wide. Deep, not wide.
Okay, let's talk the difference between going deep and going wide. Let's bring it home for the people so they can understand. So we're gonna set some folk free tonight. Let's talk about going deep because I think some people so deep till they falling out the bottom, but they're not getting nowhere. I'm talking about really going deep and doing some work, getting into the layers of your life.
So, huh? Okay, so only God can take you deeper. You go you go deeper. Depth is a promotion.
Oh,
Like when you're talking about being promoted in the spirit,
mm,
that's what promotion is. God taking you deeper. A lot of times promotion, people think of promotion as rising higher,
mhm,
being over someone
mhm.
or having, authority over. But God's promotion is entering into the holy of the holies, like going deeper into, like, in the Bible when they talk about like the priest or whatever, they would have the rope, the bell tied to him.
Uh,
So
yeah. So if
it's
he
like
died, they could pull him
they
out because
can
they
put it.
don't have in to get him. Yes.
That's deep. That's
Mhm.
deep. That's deep. And a lot of and the thing about depth is that heaven will not be mocked. Heaven will not be fooled. And that's the thing that you cannot in and of yourself take yourself deeper. And the interesting thing about going deeper spiritually is that when you've really gotten to that place, a lot of times you don't want to go.
Mm-mm.
See, if you're too eager to go deeper, then I know you're not ready yet. Because there that you
It's
it
ugly. It hurts. It don't feel good. It makes
it
you second guess a lot of things.
and it's a spiritual recalibration, like you change on a cellular level. Like spiritual maturation is not just reading the Bible, it's not just going to church, it's not just going to conferences and listening to people. When the inner work takes hold, your whole countenance changes. Like you feel off balance. Like there's like you would go to the, like medically you would think something was wrong with you. Like I mean, I literally have been to the doctor, like, what is going on with me? Well, there's nothing wrong with you. Like everything checks out fine. And it's like, God's like, you're asking all of the questions to the wrong people.
Exactly.
God said, what have you asked me to do?
Mm-hmm.
There's a stripping away spiritually, mentally, and physically. And a lot of times people miss that physical stripping away because it doesn't compute, like it really doesn't make sense, because we're so geared towards the woo woo, the spiritual, but you got to understand there's an inside and an outside to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is changing.
It's so much so that your temperament changes,
Hmm.
your your personality even changes.
I believe, like, I'm no scientist or anything, but I would really love, I mean, it's too late now, but I would really have loved someone to have done a study on my brain to just see how my brain literally changed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know it is changed. I mean, the clarity, it's wild.
Mm-hmm. It is. I didn't know what to do with myself. I rolled around I just laid in the floor. I ain't nothing else I could do but just lay on the floor. I couldn't do nothing else. I spent more time on the floor than anywhere. Mama, you all right? Yeah, baby. I'm
But
fine.
then when the spiritual work really takes hold, you can start to use your body more as an instrument. Like, God can use your entire body. Like, your body does not lie. Like, you can use your like every aspect of your body when you yield to God, when you yield to heaven, everything is, how can I put it? Um what's the word? Submits. Like, everything is under God's authority.
When I started to learn that, I remember I'd be fine in the morning. Get to church, I had the worst headache. My back would start hurting. I'm like, Lord, what is going on? What is wrong with me? My hearing, something was going on in my hearing. I said, what is happening? But then I started paying attention to what was going on. When I get a certain type of headache, I'm in the presence of a demonic spirit. I know it.
Hmm.
So now when I go to certain places, I'm like, oh God, what's about to go down? Or when I feel a pain in my back, somebody around me has some type of ailment or sickness. Or in my hearing, um, it's something that someone will speak something, and I have to calm my mind. When we talk about the inner dialogue, calm all that stuff down so that I can hear or make sure I'm listening to what's happening in the atmosphere. And it moved, and I had to have the experience at church to know how to do it in the world. And not to
Hmm.
walk around on eggshells or like I'm scary or anything like that. But when God begins to speak to you, He uses everything. Just like you said, He uses everything
Honey,
in every atmosphere that you're in.
you've heard this story before, but I used to work for an individual that God allowed me to sit, like, we were supposed to have this conversation. And this person was like, well, here, normally I would sit at their desk. So this day he was like, let's move towards the window. And I was like, why are we? Because they had a little working table over
Mhm.
there. So I sat there, and God said, I need you to see this. From that day to this one, honey, God said, I need you to see this. Every time that man lied, his eyes changed colors. Girl, I was like, I didn't. So
I'm telling you, I'm
we would
telling
be
you.
sitting there. We would be sitting. My girlfriends that work with me, they're like, he lying, ain't he? I was like, yep. The body does not lie.
Yeah.
We can lie, but the body does not lie.
Mm-mm.
The body, and I never, when COVID happened and God had given me that assignment to do that 24-hour prayer,
Mhm.
I was like, surely this is not of the Lord. Honey, I've never had it from that day. I never had it before. I haven't had it since. Vertigo. The moment I said, surely this is not of God, God said, we're going to see about that. Honey, I laid down and it's like the inside of my head started spinning. And I was getting nervous, and I was like, "Oh my God," because my daddy had Meniere's disease. I was like, "Oh my God, my hearing's gonna go, my hearing." And I was getting all worked up, and I was getting ready, and I could tell I wasn't connecting with heaven. Right? Heaven wasn't panicking the way I was. I was like, "Oh, I need a doctor's appointment. I need to go find." God said, "Well, what did I tell you to do?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Well, you said something about a 24-hour prayer, but I know that surely that is not of God, because who's gonna be doing all of that, right?" God said, "Try me on this." For 2 whole days.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid to walk down my stairs. I was afraid everything was just spinning. It was just like I was on a constant like merry-go-round or something. I was like, oh my
He
goodness.
put you back on the potter's wheel.
Right? So God said, what did I tell you to do? I said, well, you said the 24-hour prayer. Honey, I had the computer in my room. I sat it up and I went to the Facebook page and I said, we're going to do a 24-hour prayer. Anyone interested, whatever. As soon as I pushed send, honey, everything started calming down. I slept like a baby.
And
God,
needless to say, we had that 24-hour
we
prayer.
had, girl, did we not?
We
Did
had
we
that
not?
24-hour prayer. We had that, and it was God did a lot. We
That
had
was so powerful. And see, that's the thing. A lot of times we miss so much of what heaven wants to do for us because we're thinking that it's all about us. That
see
wasn't even about me.
now we talking about this inner dialogue, and this is exactly what we talking about. Your inner dialogue will cause you to miss or find yourself almost in a tussle with the Holy Ghost, and that's not what you want because you know you're not gonna win.
You're not gonna win. You're not gonna win. Never. Never.
You're not gonna win.
Mm-mm. No.
Let me
And that 24-hour prayer was so
powerful.
powerful. I was just amazed.
Hmm.
It brought out so many people that were not. I don't pray like that. Like people were showing up for that call. Like I knew it was God because they didn't want to be there. It was so funny. Like, well, I'm not gonna do that. Well, I'm not gonna do. And then by the honey, people would do it. I was like, no, what you say you weren't gonna do? Because I was laughing because I was like, I was the first one that said I wasn't gonna do something. So I was like, I don't think that you any stronger than God. So we're gonna see how that works out. Everybody that said they couldn't do something,
Hmm.
guess what?
They did it
They did.
because see, the Holy Ghost will deal with those that He has chosen. You connected to the vision, and God is pulling you towards something and nudging you towards something. He's not gonna let you rest.
Not at all.
Because I know I was the first one to put my hand up because I knew what I was supposed to do. The guy had already dealt with me about something. So when the call came out, I said, oh, that's supposed to be for me. I wasn't going to miss that opportunity. And you would think around about 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning that there might not have been a lot of people on the call. Oh, no, there was
Girl,
a lot of people there.
girl. I was
In the midnight hour, it was people
in
there.
the midnight hour. I was surprised. I was like, my God. God would say, don't box me in.
Hmm.
Don't box me. I was like, my God. Honey, that was powerful.
So when we think about the things that we have within ourselves that keep us from moving in the direction that God wants to take us. And see, sometimes we sit back and we second guess things because it doesn't look like when God is taking us a direction, it doesn't look like in our mind how we want it to look. So we side eye God and we side eye situation. God, as you said, surely this is not of the Lord. God, you're not going to do it this way. It would make sense, God, if you did it this way. it would make sense if you, why didn't you involve this person in the process? And God sometimes like, no, because you don't understand. I know what they said about you yesterday, and they don't need to be a part of it. Or I know what's about to happen further down the road, and I'm trying to prevent you from having to deal with this, that, and so that you won't be coming back crawling to me. So this is the reason why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So let's talk about when we dealing with something that we have. I'm going to say we make these inner vows. Oftentimes, as a child growing up, I'll never do so and so. And we get to a place where God is like, I need you to do that. How do we deal with those inner vows that we have made? And we promise to God, I will never do this. And God say, now it's time for you to do that.
Hmm.
How do we deal with that inner dialogue?
That takes a great deal of maturity and humility because a lot of times, how can I put it? Most all the time, God is just setting us up. Like there is no word that we utter out of our mouths that surprises heaven. Absolutely nothing. It may surprise us, but it don't surprise God.
Mhm,
And when you start to think about how we're operating, most of us are operating in a man made progression.
mhm,
And when you're operating in a man-made progression, that I use that as the equivalent of operating in a counterclockwise way.
mhm,
And when you're operating in a counterclockwise way, that means that you're operating the opposite of what it is that God needs you to do.
mhm.
And so when you come to terms with the fact that you are ready now to operate in a God made progression, you just got to suck it up, buttercup, and just say, I know absolutely nothing. Anything that I may have said before, I like to plead insanity. And you've got to eat a whole bunch of humble pie,
Mhm.
a whole bunch of humble pie, because it's pride that keeps us stuck. It's our limited ability to understand things from a higher perspective, and it's our poor relationship with heaven. And once
Mm.
you shore all of those things up, all bets are off. All bets are off. Like anything that God needs to do, you have to be willing.
And you said something that was so powerful. Our poor relationship with heaven. Because oftentimes I believe that people think because I go to church every Sunday and I've been on the usher board for 50 years, I got a strong relationship with heaven. Because I'm the first lady of the pastor, or I've done missionary work, I have a great relationship with heaven. Or because I'm a good person and I give my tithes and I pay the most, I know that when we have those events and somebody else's child raised 5,000, I'm gonna give 5,020 because I'm gonna make sure I gave the most money. That we think that we have the best relationship with heaven. So how do we gain this proper relationship with heaven?
Mm. Expect the unexpected. When I heard God tell me at one point, do not go to church.
Mm.
I was like, get thee behind me, Satan. Surely this is not of God. The Lord would never tell me not to go to church.
And then he gave us COVID. Go ahead, keep talking.
And I never forget it was are you hearing feedback? I don't know if I hear some on my end. Maybe
Not
it's
on
just
my
me.
end.
Okay, good. Um so my prayer was that I wanted to really have a relationship with God. I wanted to hear God's voice just like I hear you. I wanted to feel God's presence just like I just wanted to be like just encapsulated, like just like smother me, heaven. And this one Sunday, I had my routine. I would get up, get the kids together, the whole church routine and everything. And this one Sunday, God was like, "Don't go to church. Spend time with me." And I was like, "Huh? I go to church to spend time with you." And so God said, "I want to show you something." So I journal, and God had me to write down the sermon, to write down the sermon. And I took my journal to church with me, and I'm sitting there, and the sermon was exactly what God had given me. And I'm looking, so I can't really share it with everybody because nobody, this is between me and God. I was like, "Oh my goodness." And then the next Sunday, God says, "Don't go to church." And I was like, "What? Surely this is not a God." So God has to teach me a few times. So once again, God gave me the sermon. I was like, "Oh my goodness." And then the third time, a lot of times God will give you something with a witness so that you know that it's not you, you're not crazy, you have a witness now. And this third time, I was actually talking to my girlfriend, and my girlfriend actually was texting me from church. I said, "Girl, I know you're not texting me from church." She said, "We done already had this discussion. Guess what the guess what the pastor's talking about?" So all that time, God was trying to get me to understand that you don't need a middleman if you have a powerful relationship with God. You don't need a crutch. Like, you don't need a lot of the things that the world tells you you need when heaven wants to guide you. Like, there's a time for community, there's a time to come together, there's a time for fellowship, there's a time for everything. But don't use those things to replace your capacity or your ability to truly develop a real relationship with heaven.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people miss it, because the church house is not your relationship with God. And I was doing all of the things like you're talking about, checking off all the boxes. Honey, we were feeding the homeless. We were doing. I had my tithe on direct draft. Like, it would come out with my pay. It would come out automatically. I was giving. I was doing all of the things, and I was miserable.
Mm-hmm. It's a little feedback. Don't know where it's coming from, but that we're gonna take care of that. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Understand? I had a whole separate account just for my ties. Like, nothing is gonna touch my ties. It's going in a whole separate account. And it was one of those situations where I had the same experience. Every It was almost like I actually walked around my house looking for cameras. Like, surely somebody has got to be in here in the house, because every conversation that I had,
Mm-hmm.
every time I read something or studied something, that Sunday he preached about it.
Right.
And that happened for a solid 2 years. I was like, what is really going on? But that was God getting me in alignment. Because understand, in that situation, my whole household was tore up from the floor up. Everything was crazy. I spent again, in another season of it with my nose to the floor, praying like, God, I need to understand. And he was just clearly just trying to give it to me. Clearly just trying to give it to me. And sometimes we bypass the obvious.
Mm. I had to switch my mic. Can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay. One thing that became very evident during that time period was God was showing me the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And with those sermons, with the lessons, what God was showing me was that we were feasting off of genetically modified spiritual food. Like, a
Ooh.
lot of the sermons that God was showing me, like in the atmosphere, when this is where people can, you know how you have psychics and people like that. it's like when you put your information out there in the ethers, it's like picking trash up from the side of the road. So there are people that have the ability to psychically, if you will, to grab things from the ethers. And so what God was showing me is that the deeper, so you want to make sure that you are entering into the spirit realm in a God-made progression and not through a worldly progression. And when heaven is leading you so that you get fresh manna, so that you get the the first from heaven, like on earth as it is in heaven, so that you are drawing from heaven first. This was so powerful during that season, because I kept trying to figure out, like, God, how is it that the sermons, I know what the sermons are, like, I'm writing down. God's like, that's genetically modified spiritual food. And God would put me in the place, I'm not a minister, but God would put me in the place of all these ministers. This was powerful. I'm sitting there, I'm at this event, and this minister walks in, he's like, I'm so sorry I'm late. I was with Long and Jakes and da-da-da. I was like, oh, okay. And he said, well, I just wanted to stop by and, do all of his stuff. And he said, yeah, I got to go home and work on my sermon for Sunday. I said, what did he say? He said, I got to go home and work on my sermon for Sunday. This was Wednesday. Mm-hmm. I said, wait a minute. I didn't know how ministers work. Because I know how God works with me. So when God gives me something, it's fresh. It's like I don't even know what I'm getting ready to say. So I'm thinking ministers are getting up there and they just like led by the Spirit. He said, no, he was taking a sermon, he was tweaking it a little bit. He was adjusting it a little bit. God said, that's why you're able to assess what the sermons are, because they're already in the ethers. That's old manna. That's stale. That's not anything that, how can I put it, that you are going to grow from. If you can pick it up off the side of the street, if I could pick it up from the ethers, how else would it have been accessible? It wasn't. When God gives you something fresh, that thing is like Fort Knox. When God gives you fresh manna, that thing is like hitting everybody like, ooh, oh my goodness, this is, ooh. But honey, day old bread. My.
So let's go back to, that's a lot. Let me digest that and pull it back for a second. So when we think about inner space, and we're still talking about the inner critic, we're talking about being in a space where God is trying to do a new thing within you, and to get you to a new place in the spirit realm, to get you a new place in your life. But some of the old stuff, the old memories, the old thoughts, the old sayings, stuff you used to say around mom and them, all that stuff starts coming up to keep you from grabbing the revelation.
See, we have to understand that don't pay attention to what you can see. Like, the atmosphere is so vibrant, and that is where the enemy resides. So it's the atmosphere, like you are setting the tone for the atmosphere, like everywhere your feet trod, like your words are saturating the atmosphere. And so your words precede you, like the words that are in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and we're made in the image and likeness, so our words have that creative power as well. And so until we understand and learn to harness the power of our words, we're swimming in a cesspool of, how can I put it, deficiencies. Mm-hmm. And we have to literally learn how to wade through and to sift through and to cut through the atmosphere everything that we've set in motion. Words, you have to, how can I put it? Over overpower the words. Like, you can't, if you said that I'm dumb, I'm stupid 3,551 times,
Come on. Come
then
on.
you have got to 3,552 times say that you are capable, that you
Yes.
are. So it's, you've got to understand that there's a balance to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people miss it. God is a God of decency. God is a God of order. God is a God of justice. Like, everything has a right to exist. Those
Mm-hmm.
words that you used have a right to exist.
Mm-hmm.
The new words that you're using have a right to exist. But you have got to give heaven equal time.
Mm-hmm. I learned that when, because sometimes it happens so quickly we don't think about it. This is that place of being in that true place of clarity and consciousness to know exactly what you're saying and when and how powerful it is. Because we could be going about our day at work. Girl, how you doing? I'm fine. Oh, child, I got a headache. Child, I know what you mean. So do I. You have agreed
Just
that
like that.
quickly
Just like that.
with that individual.
Just like that.
Girl, every time I take 2 steps back, I take 1 step.
Me
Take two
too.
steps forward, I take. Girl, me too. I know exactly what you're talking. You have agreed with that person. God is trying to bring you out of a situation, and here comes someone with a casual conversation, and just that quickly, you have agreed and have taken yourself and tumbled back with your own words. Now, that happened to me. I was having a great day, and here comes someone and said something. Oh, girl, I know what you mean. So and so. It wasn't 10 minutes down the road, something crazy happened. I said, what in the world's going on? He said, because you agreed. And you have to be careful not to agree so quickly. Because there it is, the question, who sent you? How long you gonna be here and what's your assignment? And just as fast as I could blink my eyes, I had already agreed and sabotaged my own day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we would do it out of anger, haste, frustration.
Yep.
We'll make these comments and put them in the atmosphere, and we wonder why stuff starts tumbling and rolling over in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to learn how to do affirmations and to turn my life over for the better, because I knew that I had said negative things and trying to come out of the inner critic and saying all the negative things. And I would say it, and then something else, and then say it, and then something else. And I would say, God, why is it not anything moving in my life? He said, you got a traffic jam in the spirit.
Ah!
He said, because each time you command my word, my angels take flight. But as soon as you say something else, they're gonna bring that to pass too. So I said, he said, you got a whole traffic jam. You got to choose what side you're gonna be on.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, especially like in our journaling community, and this is why this work ain't good. Like, I have a hard time marketing, because I be like, look, this is why I tell people. I was like, look, don't start it if you're not gonna finish it. Because this is where, and I see it more and more, especially because of the work that I do. There are so many people who, like, each of our journals, we dedicate the journal. That dedication is one of the most powerful tools that you will ever have as you're journaling. But you have to understand that those first 3 days, that's your contract with heaven. When you have a contract with heaven on earth as it is in heaven, for everything in the natural, there's a parallel and corresponding occurrence in the supernatural. You try to break a contract here on earth, what's going to happen? You're going to get sued. Things are not going to go well. It's going to cost you. How much greater in heaven. See, that's where a lot of us mess up. And this is where a lot of that negative, that self-talk
Mm-hmm.
comes in, because we do not believe God. We don't believe God. Like, we say, God, will you heal my marriage? And God says yes. A yes with heaven is yes. We take that yes and we start to put parameters around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in 6 months. Yes, in 2 years. Yes, in 5 years. If it hadn't happened by then, by now, it just ain't gonna happen. Baby, a yes with God is yes. God is the creator of time. God is not bound by time. This is why we have a lot of that unhealthy chatter, that those poor conversations, because we do not know how to speak. We only need to be speaking what we hear God telling us.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Only need to be speaking what we hear God telling us, what we hear God saying.
You know, I cannot tell you how many times I walk around, especially at work, and I say to myself, God, if you don't give up, I won't give up.
Honey,
God, if you don't give up, I won't give up. And I have to, because you want to throw in the towel, because some things it gets too taxing and you feel like you don't have enough. But then you remember, God, you are greater than everything. So if you don't quit, I won't quit.
honey, that's why I consistently teach. Don't quit another thing. When I tell you I don't quit anything, I only allow when God's endings are so powerful that you can't even see the opening. Like when God closes something, God closes that thing so powerfully that you don't even know it existed. Like, oh, wait, what was there a door there? What was that? Like, it's sealed up so good. See, when we start to quit things and we close things and we shut things down, it's a little bitty crack. Like you could wiggle your way back in there if you needed to. You can double back. This is why we are not qualified to quit. We're not qualified. You can quit, but you're not qualified to quit because you do not know enough about the scenario to give up. You don't
Wow.
know enough.
So when we think about the inner critic, when God tells us to do something and that inner dialogue wants to pop up, we don't know enough about the whole scenario to even try to negotiate or debate or try to wiggle our way out of the situation, because we don't know enough about the scenario. We don't know all the major parts he's putting together behind the scenes and the timeline.
Let me tell you how God sat me down real good, because it was taking too long. Whatever I was asking God for was taking too long. And God had me to make a list. God said, write a list of all of the key players in this thing. Write a list of
Mm.
all of the people who are involved in making this thing happen. And I wrote the list of as extensively as I could based on what I thought, how many people were involved. And God said, now, imagine that each and every one of these people acts like you.
Oh.
Oh my God. How long did it take you? How long did it take you to send the email? Give them equal time. How long did it take you to make the phone call? Give them equal time. How long did it take you to do the forgiveness work? Give them equal time. I said, oh my God.
Mm.
Let me go set my little self down and go do what I need to do. Because how arrogant is it that we do not want others to do what God has allowed us to?
Mm.
How arrogant. It was in
Mm.
my marriage. I never forget when Mike had to go through his process. Now it took me about 10 years to get through my own process. It took Mike 10 years to get through his process. But at about year 2 or 3, this is some bull right here. You think I'm gonna be? God said, give me equal time.
Wow.
Give me equal time. And when you give God equal, see, this is where people get messed up. People be like, I love it. I love these questions. People don't ask them so much now because they know me pretty much. People be like, well, I said, so what are you asking God for? What do you? Well, I want this. I want that. How long you think it's gonna take? I said, well, how long have you been in the mess? Oh, I say about maybe 10 years, 9 years. Give God equal time, honey. You should see the look. People don't want to do that, but God had to wait on you.
Mm.
And that's how God redeems the time. When you come to God humbly, when you come to God with a contrite heart, when you come to God saying, God, you know the best for me, that's how heaven redeems the time.
Y'all.
That's how heaven redeems the time. A lot of times people don't understand what the redemption of time means. It means give God equal time. Like, give God enough time to undo what you have done.
Mm.
Give heaven enough. That's how we shortchange ourselves of the fullness of our days. Because we're trying to shortchange heaven.
Mm.
I should have been healed by now. This bill should have been paid by now.
That's the inner critic talking.
What they say, pride, what the Bible say, pride goes before the fall.
Yeah,
That's some pride right there.
my Lord. Yeah, I can't believe it's already 9 o'clock.
Oh my.
This was good. This went by too
It
fast.
did go by fast tonight.
It did. So as all our time is up. And we will definitely continue this conversation on next week. And I pray that it was as good for you all as it was for us. And we were talking about the inner dialogue and how to put ourselves in a position where we don't miss what it is that God is doing in our lives, and we don't miss the miracles, we don't miss the blessing, because our inner dialogue, that negative self-talk that comes against and bombards and comes against what God is trying to do, and he's trying to help us get to our answer to our prayer.
Amen.
So again, y'all, you all share this with someone if it was good. Some people saying this was so good, this is very good. Um, and we thank you for being here with us. We truly do. Share this with someone. Share it off of YouTube, off of Facebook. Please share, and you all come back next week. We're getting ready to celebrate 1 year with Evolve and Elevate with Erica. We get ready to celebrate 1 year. We started Juneteenth last year, and we're getting ready to come up on our first year anniversary. So I am super duper duper excited about that. So you all, please come out and celebrate with us. We thank you for being here as always. We love you all so much. Continue to leave your comments. If you're watching a replay, continue to leave your comments, and let's have some more intense conversation. If it's something on your heart that you want to talk about, let us know. And I'm also going to be sitting out there a form for you to be a guest on the show. We want you to be a part of Evolve and Elevate with Erica. We want more people in this conversation and in this dialogue. We greatly appreciate everyone. And if you're available on a Monday night at 8 o'clock, we want you to come here and have this conversation with us, because we want to have a sacred space where we can share and we can help other people through our testimony and our experiences as well. So we love you all. We thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next week.